Hey everybody, it's me Yvonne coming back to you today with a video as I promised on the NACA Workshop. NACA, for those of you who don't know, is a home buying program that assists low to moderate income people. They do have no down payment, no closing costs, no mortgage insurance. They do not at all look at your credit score. Perfect credit is not required, however, they do look at your payment history, and they have below interest rate at this point. I think today when we looked it up, it was their interest rate was at a 3.265 is what their interest rate was today. So that's below market value at this point. When you first get to the workshop, they're going to give you this workbook. It's about 48 pages long. And in this workbook, everything you need to know about the program and what you need to do is in here. There are some pages in here that you will actually have to fill out. I didn't have to fill them out because I went through the workshop in 2014, so they just reactivated my ID. But you have the participation pledge, you have the workshop attendance form, and you have your landlord page. You will have to turn in your workshop attendance form because that is how you will receive your NACA ID. And with the NACA ID, that's how they'll schedule you and they'll identify you throughout the program. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to a NACA workshop, which is what I did today. It is a required way for you to get into the program. There's no other way to get into the program. At the workshop, they'll go over everything. They basically go over this book. That's pretty much all they do. They go over the book and they answer questions. So if you have questions that you want to ask prior to going to the workshop, write them down. When you go there, just ask the questions as they cover those topics. Once you get out of the workshop, they'll collect the papers. I think he said it takes about 2 weeks for you to get you'll get an email with what's called your NACA ID, which is your membership number. When you get your membership number, you'll have access to their web file. The web file is basically your information, and you could upload documents to the web file. You could check the status. You'll find out who your mortgage counselor is going to be, what your appointments, things, all of that is on the web file. So you'll have access to that. Tip: go ahead and start uploading documents as soon as you get that. That way you're able to be in the habit of just uploading your information, and it's not something you have to start with, because the normal time, I know down here where I am, the normal wait time for an appointment is about 3 months. So my appointment is in August. So you're not going to get an appointment right then. I got my appointment because, as I stated, I already had an ID, so I didn't have to wait on the ID. But they'll send your ID. Once you get your ID, you call and make an appointment, and it's usually about a 3-month wait. He actually said he's scheduling people for November, so I guess it depends on who your mortgage counselor is going to be. Once you go through the workshop, you get your ID, you schedule your appointment, you're going to go to what's called an intake session with the mortgage counselor. This is basically your first meeting with your mortgage counselor. You do have an option of doing either a face-to-face, which is someone in your local office, or you could do what's called remote, which is video conferencing. And what will happen is you'll do a video conference with your counselor. That will be the only way you'll communicate with your counselor, is via video conferencing. I prefer face-to-face. I'm more of a hands-on person. Video conferencing, it's not for me. However, remote counseling would be good if you're someone that's looking to purchase a home in an area outside of where you are. So that way your file could be transferred to whatever home office of where you're trying to look to move. So that's a good idea. During your intake session, they're going to pull your credit report, which you do have to pay for. So they'll pull your credit report. They're going to look at your debt to income ratio. They're going to look at your employment history. They're going to look at your payment history. They're going to go over anything on your credit report that needs to be rectified or that needs to be worked on. They're going to collect any paperwork that you didn't upload or that didn't make it through the system, because we are dealing with technology, so everything that you upload may not go through. So tip on this step: get yourself a binder. This is a 2-ring binder, and what I would suggest you to do is get some dividers, get some of these sleeves, and just start keeping a paper copy of everything that you're gonna need. So start keeping a copy of your paycheck stubs. Start keeping a copy of your bank statements. Start keeping a copy of your if you put your own credit to go over some things, go ahead and put that in there. Any employment verifications, any letters, anything that because when you go on your web file, it's going to list the things that you need. Keep a copy of your recent year's W-2. Keep a copy of your income tax transcripts. Anything that you have that's needed, that's required, start getting in the habit of putting it in a folder, so when you go to your intake session, whatever they don't have in the system, you have a hard copy of. That way excuse me, that way you can just pull it out. You guys can scan it at the office and it'll be in your file, and it won't hold you up, because what's going to happen is they're going to do what's called an action plan for you, and on that action plan, it's going to let you know everything that you need to do in order to get qualified for your mortgage. So you literally have to follow every step in your action plan. If you don't, if you miss something, you start over, pretty much. So once you meet with the mortgage counselor, you guys are going to, if you have an action plan, if you don't have an action plan, let's say you go in qualified, that means you have all the money you need saved, you have all the paperwork they require, everything is just on point, right? You're ready to go. They'll submit your file to the underwriting department, and they'll go over your stuff or whatever. If you do have things that you need to upload, if you do have money you need to save, things like that, if all your ducks are not in a row, then they'll give you the action plan. You work on the action plan, you schedule a follow-up appointment with your mortgage counselor, and you start working on that stuff, right? Once you get everything right and get all your ducks in a row, then you go to underwriting. Once you go to underwriting, you go to underwriting to get NACA qualified. NACA qualified means that your file is ready to go to the bank. Now, they do sometimes come back and say, okay, we need this. And this is the reason why it's good to not change anything throughout this process, because every little thing that you change is going to bing your file. So if you change jobs, if you add income, if you have large withdrawals coming out of your account, large deposits going into your account, any little thing, they're going to require documentation for it. So, try to stay consistent. Try to get consistent with how you handle everything now. Start getting consistent with watching the way that you spend money, going over your budget, making sure you're staying on budget, making sure you're saving your money consistently, things like that. So once you get to underwriting, they could go through everything. Hopefully everything will go fine. Once you get NACA qualified, that does not mean you get your mortgage. That just means you're qualified through the NACA program. So you go to what's called a purchase workshop. The purchase workshops is held every Thursday nationwide, and the office is about an hour and a half. So once you go through the purchase workshop, they'll give you another hand workbook to read over. They'll go over everything that deals with actually purchasing your home. So every step you need to take to get your home, to find your home, everything from looking for a realtor to looking for houses to what to do with inspection, all of that stuff they'll go through at the purchase workshop. From that point on, you're dealing with your real estate agent, you're dealing with the NACA people, so you're going to be dealing with different people. So again, having your handy dandy work binder is going to come in handy. Once you go to the Workshop. That's when you get your letter stating that you went through everything. You're ready to look for houses. You find your real estate. They also have a real estate department. So if you don't have a realtor, you could go through their realtor. If you do have a realtor, then you could just let your realtor know. Y'all set up a meeting, start looking for your houses. Once you find a house that you like, you'll do a purchase and sale contract. Um, that will let NACA know that you found a house that you want. Once you do that, then you have to put in an offer. Um, you go through NACA to make sure that anything, the property condition, you have to get an inspection on the house. You have to make sure there's no code violations. Once NACA say, okay, this property is good, you go through what's called the credit access program. Credit access, they're going to run your credit again. They're going to make sure that you haven't changed, nothing has changed. This one, it goes to the bank. So they just make sure that you haven't changed anything. All of your stuff is still good. You're still in a position to purchase this type of home that you found, things like that. Then it goes into the mortgage process. It goes to the bank. The bank does their part, which of course they're probably going to run your credit again. So be prepared to have your credit ran a lot throughout this process. Pretty much, I heard somewhere every 60 days or so they have to rerun your credit. So just be prepared for that. Um, Once you go through the mortgage process, hopefully the mortgage company, the lender, which I'm told right now they go through Bank of America. At least in my area, they go through Bank of America. Um, Hopefully they don't find anything and say, okay, we need additional information. When I tell you, from what I've understood from researching, looking at YouTube videos, going online, going to reviews, looking at the NACA forum, it's very important for you to just have your paperwork with you at all times. It's very important to stay up to date with everything at all times. Um, just to make sure that anything that they need, you have it handy. You could just go on your binder, boom, there you go. Once the mortgage company clears you and say, okay, this person is good, they could get the house, they're approved, they're confirmed, blah, blah, blah. You get your letter from the mortgage company, they send you a packet, whatever. Then it's time to move into, because the housing inspection, you already done all of that is good. So you're just going through the bank to make sure you get cleared. Once you get cleared through the bank, you go into your closing. Now, during the closing process, that's when you start looking into homeowners insurance, um, making sure that everything that you and the seller agreed on would be repaired gets repaired. You want to make sure that the house is up to par. Everything that you put in your contract, is all of that is good. You then go ahead, close on your home. Once you finish closing on your home, NACA does offer post-purchase assistance, which means if you're ever basically this is the main thing they talked about. If you're ever in a situation where you're not going to pay your mortgage, you do get up to 6 months worth of help through NACA, which I thought was a good addition or a good incentive to go through this program. Um, so let's get into some of the things that you're going to need with NACA. Even though they don't go by your credit score, they still run your credit because they want to make sure that you have a good payment history. So making sure you pay your rent on time, making sure you pay your utility bills on time, making sure you pay your car note on time. Whatever bills you have, they want to make sure that you're consistently paying those for 12 months on time. If you're in a situation where you don't pay rent per se, let's say you're living with somebody and they just ask you to contribute, you contribute a certain amount every month, you need to have record of what you contribute. So that person's going to have to give you a letter stating that you contribute to the household or whatever with the amount, and then it's best for you to start using money orders versus giving them cash or using cash out, because they want to be able to track those payments to make sure that they're coming out consistently. Also, with your income, if you have to be on your job for at least 1 year on your job. You have to have 2 years worth of W-2 showing that you worked 2 years straight consistently, but you have to be on a job for a consistent 12 months. If you have a and I'm going to use this as an example, if you have a full-time job and a part-time job, if you have not been on both jobs for 1 year, you cannot use both incomes. You can only use the income of whatever job you've been on for a year. If you do something like Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, DoorDash, things like that, um, if you have not been doing that for a consistent 12 to 24 months, they won't count it as income. They have to be able to track. You have to have, uh, put it like this, everything that you do has to have a paper trail. They have to have a paper trail for everything you've done. With child support, if you get child support, if your child is if your child is over the age of 13, you cannot use child support as a form of income. And the reason for that is because at the age of 18, legally, that non-custodial parent is not required to pay child support. Child support normally cuts off at the age of 18 unless there's other circumstances. But under normal circumstances, child support cuts off at 18. And if your child's going to turn 18 before that time, then you can't count that income because that income will not be included anymore in your ability to pay the mortgage. Because remember, they go by how much you can pay each month, not total home purchase price. They go by how much you could pay each month. Another thing is, let me think. Another thing is if you get to the point where you have debt that is required to be paid off. If you have something in collections within 2 years, in the prior 2 years, so it's 2019 now, if you have anything that went into collections from 2017, 2018, you need to rectify that. So that means either pay it off or get in a payment plan for it. Let's see. Debt. Oh, there's something called, as far as what you need to save. There's no closing costs per se. There's no down payment per se. However, you do have to have two very important things. You have to have a payment, what's called a payment shock, and you're going to have what's called minimum required funds. Those are savings showing that you can afford the home that you're looking to purchase. So, I'll go into each one of those in a different video because this video is getting kind of long. But that is the gist of the NACA program. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. And I'll let you know what happens on the next step, which is my counselor, my intake session with my mortgage counselor. However, that won't take place until August. But I'll do videos in between that time to go over other things. So thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have a nice day and be blessed.